to Art in the Raw. Art in the Raw is a video series of upbeat, candid conversations with creative people. And today I'm excited to introduce you to Alberto Zalma. Alberto is an artist, musician, and a gallery owner in Santa Fe, New Mexico. If this is your first time watching, I'm your host, Ann Kelly. Now, you might be wondering who I am. So in a nutshell, I'm someone that's been just in love with art and music my entire life. About 20 years ago, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico to further immerse myself in the art scene and to attend art school. I've now been working in the professional gallery world for about 15 years now, and I started Art in the Raw about halfway through 2020 as a way to keep people connected and inspired. So if you're into that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. Should you want to know a little bit more about me, check out the description below. But enough about me. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce you to Alberto. Thanks for joining us. And where are you at tonight?
I'm at my studio gallery, 407 Guadalupe Street in Santa Fe, kind of where I hang out, make art, music sometimes.
Yeah, so you're both an artist, a visual artist, as well as a musician. And sometimes you even play music in your gallery.
That's right, yeah. In fact, when COVID first decided to come around, we didn't know what we were going to do as far as a band, just because you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't do anything, you couldn't record really anywhere, nowhere was willing to really do anything as far as having that many musicians in one building. So we taped up all the windows, put paper in all the windows, and turned the gallery into a recording studio. Recorded a bunch of stuff here. It was actually really fun. There's wires everywhere and just musical equipment everywhere, and we could come in here when we wanted, when we didn't want. Nobody really bitches about anything around here, so we could play late, make as much noise as we wanted. It was awesome.
So in terms of recording, do you mean you were doing live streams?
We did do a live stream, but yeah, more recording stuff for an album that is upcoming. Just trying to use whatever space we could, and this ended up being a good spot for it. Turned the back room into a drum isolation booth, had the front like guitars, amps, keyboards. It was insane. But so we'll see what we can get out of all those recordings. It should be interesting.
Well, that's great. So you own the gallery, and the gallery couldn't be open at that particular time. So you made the best of it and started recording music from inside. That's great.
Luckily, I had the space, and it's not insanely expensive, but we could afford to keep paying the rent for the time being. I got a little bit of a break for a couple months, but I've still been paying this whole time. I've been paying full rent, which is kind of crazy, but still a blessing that I'm here. So
yeah, you're still in there. So are you fully open now, or is it an appointment based type of thing, or in terms of
because of the whole COVID thing, it's like I sort of just pick and choose days that I think are going to be busy. Mm-hmm. and I'll open, and a lot of times I'm here working because this is my studio. It's kind of when I'm here, but I do have a number on the door, so yeah, by appointment if I'm not here, but I don't have set schedule or hours or anything right now anyway.
Tell us a little bit about the art that you make.
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Briefly, shall I pull up your Instagram and maybe we could look at some images?
Sure. There's a lot of things I could go into about where it came from and how I started and all that. But I've kind of taken this old world traditional look and thrown in just my history. Started out really young and went through a whole gamut of different styles. When I was a teenager experimenting with drugs and whatever, I was doing really off the wall stuff, fictional characters, animals, and different stuff. But then I kind of grew into a more serious, literal way of looking at the world. And it got political for sure the older I got. So now it's very political. Not that I like politics so much, but I mean, it just is a part of our world and a part of where we live, especially being in Santa Fe. There's just so much different emotions and stuff going on with the people that live here. Being part native and having multi-generational, my family goes back a while here, so there's definitely things I have to say and things going through my head that just comes out in my artwork. Some people don't appreciate it. Some people love it. And I get in trouble all the time, but I love that. I actually like, I'm the guy that rocks the boat. I like to see what people are gonna say about some truthful stuff that may hurt.
Well, and it's been just in terms of politics, not that we want to go into that, it's just been a really, well, we're in 2021. We just got out of 2020. It's been kind of a crazy year. So even if maybe politics weren't a big part of your work before, life influences art, right? So
Right.
it's gonna creep in there. And we're not always trying to create art that makes everybody happy, right? Or I don't know, maybe some people are.
Our art is relative. It's everyone's different. Everyone has a different voice. Everybody's unique, which is great. That's what it's supposed to be. But I think people definitely can get offended very easily from an image. Not that that's my intent per se. Sometimes I will paint something I kind of know is going to tick somebody off. That's not the absolute meaning of it. That's not why I painted it, to piss a bunch of people off. That's not my MO. That's not what I'm doing. But a lot of times it does. And it's okay with me. I think people really actually can appreciate it either way, even if it does kind of offend them in a way. I think they still appreciate it in a way because it's just kind of real and in their face and raw and just kind of it is speaking of what is happening right now and around them, and there's no getting away from it.
If an image invokes that kind of emotion, there's a power to that, right? To
For sure.
actually create an image that makes somebody feel like they hate it.
I agree. And maybe somebody won't buy it, but I've had pretty good luck so far as far as people buying paintings that are very controversial.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe one person's going to hate it, but somebody else is going to love it so much that they have to buy it. I mean, everybody has things they connect to. So I am curious, since you are a musician and an artist, what came first?
Music definitely came first. Started out super young age playing violin.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was kind of pushed into it by my parents, obviously. I don't think any 4-year-old just, it's like, I want to play the violin. Like, I don't, it happens, but
Did you say
that was
4 or 14?
4.
Okay, that's, yeah, probably not a lot of 4-year-olds have that idea at all.
No. So, and I wasn't one of them either. And I actually hated it, but I loved the music.
Mhm.
So what was really interesting to me is like, even at a young age, I really loved just all the music I was exposed to, like just concertos and just all the greats, Bach and Vivaldi, and just like all these insane composers and writers that they made beautiful music. And even as a young kid, I understood that, and I could pick up on that. And I loved melodies and just everything that went along with the music, but I hated the instrument. I never liked the violin. So I was always looking for a different way to connect with music. But I
So
played from when I was 4 years old all the way up to 14. I played violin. And I stuck with it just because I liked the music and I was learning how to read music and all that. And then, I was a teenager, so I was a punk, and I was like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. And
did you switch to another instrument at that point, or was that a music break for you?
I mean, I messed around with piano a little bit, and then guitar a little bit, and kind of everything. I kind of tried everything besides wind instruments. Like I never really got into horns or anything, but everything else. I tried playing bass. I messed around with drums, like everything. But I never really stuck with an instrument ever till this day. I'm not like really that good on any one of them. I still just mess around on all of them.
So you're a member of the Boomroots Collective, and
Yeah.
you mostly, it seems, play the keyboard and do some vocals. And
Yeah.
I was reading on the website earlier a little ukulele as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I love actually. I lived in Hawaii for a little bit, so I picked up a ukulele and I loved it right away. Like, it's four strings and you can make really cool sounds come out of such a little tiny thing. And it could be because of the violin thing, I don't know, unconsciously. It could be like, oh, wow, this is a tiny little instrument. This is awesome, but it really stuck with me. And so when I got back to the mainland here, I bought a really expensive ukulele, and it is badass, and it's like one of my favorite instruments to play, like hands down. I don't play it much in the band just because the band kind of relies on me to kind of keep this bubble skank thing going for we play a lot of reggae, and there's not a whole lot of reggae keyboardists in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Like I was saying, I think this is maybe episode 25 of Art in the Raw. You are somehow the third guest that plays the ukulele.
It's really easy to play. I mean, it's not easy, but it's just versatile. You can really figure stuff out on it very easily. There's only four strings.
And it's not like a stand-up bass in terms of
Right.
or even a keyboard transporting it around, that type of thing.
Exactly. Well, and it's so small that, even if you're young, even if you're a kid, you can wrap your little hand around that little fretboard. So it's not like a big classical guitar and you gotta try to get your fingers, it's user friendly.
Yeah, I'm not a musician. I've grown up around music. I love music, but I've been tempted at times to buy a ukulele. It could still happen. It might just happen. But
You might as well. Why not?
I don't know why I haven't done it yet. I've been that close. And there's so many really cool ones. I've got friends that have collections of ukuleles. I mean, they're kind of like art. I mean, it's probably that way with a lot of musical instruments. Would you say it's kind of?
Oh yeah, of course.
They're pieces of art.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, this one that I have is amazing, and I can't even touch another one without being like, get away from me. Like it just doesn't do justice. And this thing is like literally that. It's thin, very thin, but it has the sound that it's the wood that it's made with, and just the sound that comes out of it. It's louder than my guitar. So wow. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. Wow. I bought a super expensive guitar, and I literally like hung it back up on the rack, and I play my ukulele more than I do my Martin and Company guitar, which is, beautiful guitar, but it doesn't sound anything like this little uke I got. It's amazing.
You play piano before that?
Friends had a reggae band back in the day when they were teenagers, and they're like, "Hey, we need a keyboardist." And I'm like, "Well, I got this little piece of junk. Like, I'll come and skank some chords with you guys." And literally from that day on, I just sort of became the guy that can bubble skank in a reggae band, and it kind of went from there. And I was in this band called Creation. We were all little teenagers, playing gigs on the plaza, and then that turned into buddy Mark Ortiz had a band called Rubik's Zoo. That was before Boomroots. We always played music together. So Creation and The Unknown, which Mark Ortiz and Soul, who's in our band, Soul Bentley, they used to do these gigs together. And they were like a super hip hop band, and we were like straight up reggae band. And we'd mix the two together, and we'd do all these just cool things together. And one of the members actually coined the phrase boom roots way back then. He's like, we got the boom of hip hop, roots of reggae. And it kind of just stuck with us. And, his name was C Minor, Sebastian Gordon. He died a few years back, and we kind of just dedicated that phrase to our music, because we've been playing music together for 25 plus years, and the same kind of music. Of course we get into different stuff, but I mean, we still play songs we played 25 years ago, and they're still relevant, is the funniest thing. Like, the things we're talking about politically or just worldly, like, they're still relevant. You know how art kind of does that.
Oh yeah. Musically. History repeats itself, as they say.
Absolutely. So I kind of just got thrown into that position and went from Rubik's Zoo to Boomroots, and I've kind of become one of the lead singers of Boomroots. We're still going like 10 years strong now. We've been together as Boomroots.
I've heard being in a band described as more of like a marriage with multiple people, everybody with their own passions and opinions, and they might not match. And even if they do, they might change at a certain point. So I would say staying together for 10 years is good.
I mean, we've lost and gained some members along the way, of course, but our core is the same people, and me and Mark and Soul have all been doing it the same way, sort of, and just kept together for that long, and been able to make music together with just seamlessly, no fighting, no anything.
And so is there one person that you would say started it?
I mean, not really. It was kind of just a blend of like all these bands coming together. There's all these different bands that we were all a part of. And it was kind of just like, hey, we need to just mash this up into one band, instead of like the booking all these shows with like 3 different bands that are all the same guys. It's like, let's just make one band. Well, I was playing with Rubik's Zoo, and then this guy, Mr. Colley, came along, and he's like straight up Rasta, dreads, like really into the Rastafarian movement. So we were doing like pretty hardcore roots reggae stuff, and I was playing in his band as well, and it was just all over the place. And we're like, did we just mash it up into one group? And that's what we did. So it wasn't really just one person like, I'm going to start a band. Right. It was us, like, we need to just all come together. So that's what we did.
So when it comes to making creative choices, it's just kind of a group, everybody say kind of same thing, everybody just gets together and It just all kind of flows.
Unfortunately and fortunately. The unfortunate part is we have no leader, so we have no leadership, so we're kind of all over the damn place. But the fortunate part is that we're all creative aspects of what is being put out there. So we all have a part in it, which is pretty cool. There's not many bands like that out there. There's usually a leader. There's usually, this is what we play. You want to be a part of it or not. It's not really like everybody's has creative input on this. It's like, no.
It's usually maybe like a front man, and then that person's like the director, for lack of a better word. And I've heard from some people that's the only way to make it work.
It's the easiest way to make it work, I'll tell you that. But that doesn't mean it can't work.
Right.
So having said that, obviously the other end of that is it's very hard being in a band with 6 dudes like, oh, well, I think we should do this and this, blah, 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 rah, 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 rah. I mean, it's pretty insane. But then we have this product that is just like nothing else also. It's not like we just stick to this genre or like we're a reggae band. Like everybody in our band is so different, like so different. I mean, just as far as what we do, who we hang out with, our lives are completely different. So we're not like a band that dresses the same and like, you know, all do the same things together and blah, blah. We're all so completely different, which is quite beautiful. You know, it's a beautiful thing to just be with different people, with different mindsets and different shit going on. It really makes, when you can get all those people together and make one product, make one song that sounds really nice. It's a really cool thing.
So here's a crazy question. What do you think would happen if you brought all of your band members into your studio and you all painted a painting together? How do you think that would go?
It might end up in a fight with like paint on each other, which could be cool. You know, we should film that, you know.
Yeah.
But it would definitely be interesting. They're not all artists. We're all musicians.
Well, that might make it particularly interesting.
And I've done like mass collaborations. Sometimes they end up really, you know, pretty bizarre, but a lot of times they end up just a jumbled mess. That's what you get for no direction.
And further testament to the band working out in the way that it has, and that it does. Do you feel like for you, your visual art making is maybe a good kind of balance for that, from the kind of more collaborative art making of music to being able to go into the studio, and when you start working on a piece, it's just all from you?
Kind of. But I think a lot of times when I paint certain paintings anyway, I don't think it's just my voice. I think it's kind of speaking for a lot of people. I mean, of course, some of it is just me going crazy and I want to paint this, but you know, a lot of the paintings that I decide to paint, I think it's more of a voice for, like I said, it's for a voice for a lot of people, and I think they think the same thing, or at least I want to think they do. So I think it's a little different. I mean, yeah, I get to do what I want to do, and I get to paint it how I want to paint it. So yeah, there's that. There's nobody telling me how to paint my painting. Of course, people try to tell me, like, oh, maybe you should put like a little whatever there, and I'm like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But you don't have to. It's just yeah.
It is very personal for sure.
And so your dad grew up in the Bronx? Is that right? And so you've got
Yeah,
a little bit of kind of graffiti influence that you attribute to that.
for sure. He was born in the Bronx, so like his parents were immigrants that showed up on Ellis Island like immigrants do. So he grew up very poor and sort of had to make himself, and he made himself into somebody pretty great. He ended up being a doctor and coming from a poor family that literally put himself through school and had to buy all his own stuff. Like he's like, I had to buy my first bike when I was this age after I got a paper route. It's the classic story. I got to visit New York a lot because his parents lived there, and a lot of the family that came over as well on the boat. So I got to visit New York a lot, and yeah, I got to see all the early just crazy stuff. I mean, I saw original Keith Harings and just amazing artwork on the streets. I probably saw Basquiat's and didn't even know it. Just that whole street art vibe back then, like especially in the 80s, was, I mean, I was only 10 years old or something, so I wasn't getting the full aspect of it, but I still loved it, and I still knew that I loved it, and was like, this is awesome. I want to do graffiti. And
with art, I always think you know it when you see it. So if you're 10 years old or if you're 50 with an MFA, I just feel like it comes from the gut.
Yeah, I could see that too. Anyways, like, when I was a teenager, graffiti was just barely getting started here. I'd seen this shit when I was a little kid in New York, but here it was just barely getting off the ground. And I got into it right away. It was more in the skateboard culture or gang culture. The skateboard culture was more artistic as far as colors and letters, whereas like the gangbangers were just doing simple letters with one color or whatever, and it meant a whole different thing. But I liked the other culture better, the hip hop like skateboarding culture that started here. It was cool. I got into it right away. I never really was in a crew. I sort of was always kind of solo, did my own thing because I wasn't as good as the other guys, and I also just did different things. I wasn't really following the pattern. As time went on, I finally started painting with some pretty well-to-know guys and got really into it. And I think I got more into street art as I knew it from New York, rather than like trying to paint these big pieces with letters and stuff like that, because that never really meant anything to me. Like putting my name on the sides of buildings and trailers and shit like that, I mean, it was fun, and I got to see a train roll by with my name on it, but that it really didn't mean much to me. Like getting up everywhere just to get up everywhere is like, okay, yeah, that's cool, I get it, but it didn't mean much to me. The art meant much more to me. So it was like, how do I make real statements? I don't want to just put my name on the side of a building. I want to say something. Or how is somebody going to relate to that and be like, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. Or yeah, that means all of us. Or in fact, for a while I was tagging you. So YOU. When you looked at it, it said you. It didn't say me, it said you.
Oh.
So in a way, for me, that was kind of a way to be like, nah, that's for you. It's not about me. It's for you.
The intention, which I think extends to kind of all art making, graffiti or not.
I think so, yeah. I love art and I love artists and blah blah blah, but I look at some art and I'm like, oh my god, that's just horrible and dumb. And why are you getting paid for that? Very cynical, but at the same time, there could be a message behind that that I have no idea, that is super meaningful. And I don't know, but there is a lot of bullshit in the art world, so
Yeah.
it's hard to sift through sometimes. When I see a blank blue canvas with a dot on it and
Right.
it's going 500 grand, I'm like, why? Because it's because of who painted it and the weird shit they decided to say about it.
The right tastemaker said, this is the blue dot and it warrants that price, which is a
Yeah.
crazy thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens.
It does all the time.
So where did your dad immigrate from?
He was born in New York, but yeah, it's a crazy story. My ancestors from my dad's side are Spanish Jews from Spain, but they, of course, have been kicked around and kicked out everywhere their entire existence. When the Inquisition, the Queen of Spain, kicked out all the Jews, they went to Turkey. And that's where my grandmother was born, in Istanbul, Turkey. A lot of the family, of course, they stayed together and kind of migrated wherever they could. And they were in Turkey for a long time. And then they made their way to Cuba. And they were living a good life in Cuba for a while. And then Castro did the same shit. Castro kicked out all the Jews, took away everything too. Like, took away their land, took away their houses. They were basically kicked off the island with nothing. You couldn't take your belongings, nothing. They were like allowed to pack one suitcase and get on a boat and leave. My grandmother and some of my aunts and uncles told me crazy stories about like having to like sew money into their clothes, and it was an awful story. But from there, they got on a boat to America, and they actually almost got turned away too from America. They decided to let them in for some reason. I don't remember the entire story, but pretty brutal. They arrived here with the clothes in their suitcase and the money sewn into the seams of their clothes, and started working at department stores, and finally owned their own businesses and made a living in New York City. I guess the Jewish ghetto of the Bronx. So that's where he came from.
And then eventually ended up in Santa Fe.
My mom's from here. My mom grew up in a little town called Peña Blanca, just kind of near Cochiti, Pueblo. Her family goes generations back in New Mexico. Kind of weird, this weird mix of Spanish, Jew, Indian, mestizo is what they call it.
So other than being exposed to the graffiti scene in New York as a kid, did you have other notable visual art influences growing up? Other artists in the family?
Yeah, but not really like super influential. My grandfather was an artist. He was a textile artist. So it was interesting because, nobody does that anymore. It's all digitized and copied and blah, blah, blah. But back then they didn't do that. They literally painted every freaking square. So they could copy some stuff, but people like my grandfather got paid to do these, intricate designs that ended up being tablecloths and curtains and stuff like that. So that's the only artist I know of in the family. I kind of just came upon it myself.
How old do you think you were when you started making?
Pretty early age, probably elementary school. I was diagnosed with ADD and all that. I was kind of a bad kid because I didn't pay attention and I wasn't very good in school. Most of the time I was drawing shit. Most of the time when I'm supposed to be paying attention, I was drawing. So, I was in public school for a while, but like I said, I was kind of a problem kid, so I got sent to different schools, and I ended up in private school, the Brun School. It was a nice school. It was cool, but we had really killer art teachers. I got into the art scene like right away when I knew I had that at my fingertips. Like I had these people to help me. One of our art teachers was Katie Peters. She was amazing. They kind of just facilitated whatever your needs were, what you were interested in, where you wanted to go with art, what was your strong suit, which was amazing. I'm really stoked that I got to go to that school and experience that instead of like, oh, do your math work and blah blah blah, and like they really let you hone in onto your specific craft or whatever.
Well, and I think that's important and that there should be more of that. I could
Yeah.
definitely relate if my entire self-worth was based upon my ability to do math
Yeah.
in middle school or high school or even now. I don't know that I would be quite as well adjusted as I am. So that school was in Santa Fe, right?
Yeah. It later turned into the tutorial school, which I went to as well, and I think it's still there. I think it's still being run by a few of the same people, and I hope they have the same kind of arts program because I mean it really helped somebody out like me. I mean, not that I'm like some famous artist making a ton of money, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Well, you're making paintings, you're playing music, and if it wasn't for that, maybe it would be a different situation. I've definitely thought the same thing about my path as well. When I was graduating from high school, there was nothing other than anything arts related that I had any interest in. So I've definitely thought about where I might be if I didn't have that support. And you hear a lot more these days about a lot of schools descaling the arts and music programs, and that's just a really sad thing to
It
me.
is
So
horrible. I mentored a kid from high school, and that was awesome. And I really enjoyed it because I kind of felt like I was not, it's not the whole I'm giving back speech, but it
right.
felt like I was doing something that somebody gave me, paying it forward or whatever.
Yeah,
And
no, making a difference in that kid's
and
life.
the student loved it and just is still doing some really cool art on his own today, and always gives me a shout out, and that's cool. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about being an art teacher, but I don't have what it takes to get the credentials needed to be a actual teacher.
Well, or maybe that's just not necessarily what you're inspired to do in a more conventional way. So maybe it's more inspiring to do the mentorship like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, really cool. I really enjoyed that.
What year did you open the gallery?
I've been here. I've been here about 3 years now. It's been a hell of a ride for sure. The whole thing, even before the pandemic, super hard owning a gallery, especially when you're running it by yourself. Luckily, I'm not huge. It's a pretty small gallery. That's why I've kind of scaled back and I'm sort of showing more of my own stuff, which was kind of the plan in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got super carried away and it was like, oh, this is so fun having a gallery. And I had all kinds of different artists coming through and people from out of state sending me stuff. And, it was fun. But then it got too much to deal with, and having a ton of people in one space and dealing with all their paperwork and all their everything was insane. And trying to be an artist and trying to run the building, and I got 2 kids, a wife, a house, like that's a lot.
There's
And I
only so many hours in the day, and places you can really focus your energy. There's artists that can kind of be successful selling their own work on Instagram these days without
yeah.
spaces. There's artists that run their own galleries. There's artists that prefer to work with galleries to focus on the art. It's definitely been interesting to me to just kind of see how different people are approaching it. I mean, just leasing the space, right? Like that was a big deal, I would think, just early on.
For sure. And my wife was fucking crazy, and she's like, "What? No, what are you doing? You're no." And I'm like, but, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the real reason I picked this space is because I knew that stuff was gonna happen around here. Obviously, I'm also a businessman in a way of speaking, so I have to think about that kind of stuff. So I'm like, well, stuff's gonna happen in this area. I love this street. Stuff's gonna happen right here. I already know it, and it's gonna be the place you're gonna want to be. So I'm gonna get it now and struggle for however many years it takes, and then before you know it, it's gonna be the street you want to be on.
The rail yard is just, well, I guess it's, what are we calling it now? It's the Guadalupe District / rail yard.
I mean, nobody, still to this date, nobody knows. I actually made the banner that says Guadalupe Street, like the Guadalupes that are hanging.
Yes.
All it says is Guadalupe Street with a little Santa Fe symbol. I actually created those.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, and it probably took a full year to get that passed through the city, through the Hysterical Society, through this, through that, blah, blah, blah. They totally wanted to veto it. And there were so many people that just were like, oh, that's not necessary. It's borderline disrespectful. Just all this crazy stuff coming out of people's brains. And I was pretty baffled myself, because here I am, like a local Santa Fean with history, and I'm doing it out of respect for this street. And I get that it's, oh, you're just doing it for personal gain and your profit, and it's disrespectful to Hispanics, and you should go ask the church for permission and stuff like that. And so we did go ask the church for permission. And you know what they said? Go for it. We should have come to you first. Now I know.
Yeah, I was in the neighborhood when they were deciding to do all of that, and then all the drama came up. And so then when I drove back through that area a few months ago after not being there for a minute and saw the signs were finally up, I kind of had to laugh a lot. I was like, okay, like now we're in the pandemic and the signs are up. So that's good.
Right before the pandemic. We're like, oh, yeah, gee, thanks.
Perfect timing.
Oh, well. At least we got them up, right? Running a gallery here in Santa Fe, the amount of people from all over the entire world that I've met here that have walked through my door is absolutely amazing. Just the people I've got to meet and talk to and share stories with. Like, where else could I do that? I mean, there's melting pots all over the globe, but the way the interaction is here, it's a little more mellow, so people aren't on the edge and like, well, who's this guy? What does he want from me?
Right.
Like people are in an easy, walking down the street, they feel pretty okay. So when they walk into an establishment, they're already like, they're doing fine, so they can talk to you and not be on guard or like, so it's different than like talking to a bunch of people from all over the world in New York City.
Gallery vibe in New York versus Santa Fe is very different.
Yeah, exactly.
And the history in Santa Fe.
A lot of my art depicts that, a lot of my art is Santa Fe history, is New Mexico history. Some people don't like that I paint conquistadors, but that's history. That's where you live. What do you want me to tell you? Ripping down statues and ripping down Plaza
our obelisk.
That's not going to change the history. It's still the history, whether you want to look at it or not. I get how some people, you know, will relate to it as being a object of racism and just hatred, and how people were treated and got decimated and dismantle their feelings. But it is what happened here, and it is a part of real history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not glorifying it either. I'm just depicting it. I'm not like, yeah, conquistadors, woo! I'm like,
Right.
this is your history.
You mostly use acrylics?
Mixed media for sure. I don't use oil just because I was a house painter for a while. So like I also did like faux finishing and stuff like that. So I use all these weird chemicals and shit. And I think I got pretty sensitive to all of it.
Yeah.
So I can't really stand the smell. I mean, I actually like the smell of oil paint, but it really like gets to me quickly. I can't use oil. I wish I could. I have zero ventilation, plus the chemicals used to clean it up and clean your brushes, and just I don't like chemicals really at all. I mean, acrylic is chemically enough. Spray paint, different inks, graphite, collage, obviously. So I do like a whole layer of collage work, sort of just layer it with different things, spray paint, pen, different markers, chalk sometimes. The more fun part of my painting is the under all the layers before the actual image. Because there's multi-layers. It's like first the collage, and even that's layered. Pictures on top of each other, articles, newspaper articles, and then spray paint over that. I'll even tag graffiti, spray paint, and then do like a spray paint haze for a color, like blue for a sky or whatever. And then on top of that, I just go ape shit with pencils and different pens and stuff, and just like literally just like go crazy. And that's the only time I'm able to do things like that, really. Because I would want to be an artist like that, that just goes nuts and throws paint and stuff like that. But I don't like art like that. I like the feeling of it, but I don't like the finished products. I'm not a giant fan of Jackson Pollock. Some of his stuff was cool.
Maybe you can make it that way and then kind of clean it up a little bit.
I've tried and I've thought about it. I've done some pieces where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do the background and then leave it and see what I think of it. I like it, but then it's just never done to me. But it's fun, and that's probably more important to me, is the act of doing it and having the fun going into it, and then kind of having to cover it over. It's almost like this mandala.
You know what's under there. Yeah. But I mean, really, why is anybody making art or music or anything like that if they're not having fun?
Well, like I said before, I definitely think there's some hacks out there.
Oh, definitely.
Do it just because they know they're going to make some money.
Right. They figured out they can paint a blue thing and people will give them $20,000. So they're going to
don't give a shit what they're doing.
But isn't that when art kind of loses its soul?
Well, yeah. And then the only reason it's fun to them is because they know they're going to fucking make 20 grand.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, I'm making 20 grand. Woo!
With my blue canvas.
It's not fun for the soul. I think the same goes in music too. People play music they absolutely do not want to be playing, but they do it because they know they're going to get a paycheck. That's kind of a gray area, whether you're having fun or not. Or
the movie they made about Basquiat, I think that was a major challenge. He had, he got discovered and art dealers started telling him, could you keep doing this thing over and over again? And it's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I feel like that was kind of part of his demise.
Super relevant. Pretty much ultimately freaking killed him. He was a great artist. The art world killed him. Really did. He couldn't deal with what he was painting. He couldn't deal with what he was looking at. Self-destructed. like really quickly too. Like he died at a very young age. I mean, that's insane. It started to get too heavy for him, and I almost wish I had that problem, but I don't. You know, I wish people were knocking at my door with briefcases of money and saying, "Paint this, paint that. Come on, let's go." And at the same time, like, would I want that? Would I want that stress, or just
Right.
the
Exactly.
torment of making a bunch of money and then wanting that all the time? Once you have all this money, then you're like, oh wow, I can do this. And then, you know, maybe sort of the next year you're not such a big hit and all of a sudden you're freaking poor. Like that's pretty intense for an artist to go through. And a lot of them go through that. Hot for a second and then not at all.
So I am curious. You're a musician. If you ask me what my favorite musicians are, there's so many, but
Yeah. I
just
mean,
maybe name a few, maybe someone that might have inspired you.
I would have to say Bob Marley for sure. And not just because of the whole 420 essence bullshit of reggae and oh wow, Bob Marley, cool, he smokes weed, he's a Rasta. More because of I really listened to him and like what he had to say, even off the mic. And he was super influential. In fact, I think a lot of my art ends up being that same type of thing. Even my painting art, not just my music art. It's just speaking to the people real and like being real and wanting some kind of unification of of just everybody and like trying to facilitate that in a way, even though he was a Rastafarian and had beliefs and blah blah blah, it didn't matter. He wanted people to unite and be just cool with each other. He really wanted people to be okay with each other. Black, white, blue, yellow, didn't matter. And that's what he was preaching. Not a whole lot of people do that. They kind of get pigeonholed into a certain genre or whatever and kind of have to go with it. And they're not just really acting as a revolutionist. It's been a while since we've seen somebody like that.
Bob Marley is like hard to top him on
Yeah.
any level.
Sure. Maybe like John Lennon or something, but even him, he had his little niche and wasn't. I don't know. I think he had, and sorry if I offend some people, but I think he had his easy way of like not so much a white privilege, but kind of a way he did, because more people would listen to him just because he was a Beatle from frickin' Europe and everybody loved him and blah blah blah. He could say anything and people would be like, wow, John Lennon's awesome.
Yeah.
Bob Marley had a harder time because he was a mixed black man from Jamaica with dreadlocks and a radical. Different but same in a way. They were both talking along the same lines, but the way the audience took it was also different.
Have you ever or thought about making a Bob Marley inspired painting?
I have, and I'm surprised that I haven't done it yet. Here's the sad thing, and I think this is why, is of kind of what I just said. It's like this whole 420 pot smoking teenage bong shop kind of ruins it for me. Doing a painting of Bob Marley would mean the world to me. But to me, when I was done with it, I would be afraid that that's what it would look like to me. And I hate that that's what it's come to for his persona, because he's so much more than that. And not even that shouldn't even have anything to fucking do with it. It's what he was speaking about is just, he barely talked about marijuana. I mean, he
Yeah.
did, like, it wasn't his like main thing. And it's partly because our younger generation doesn't even know who the hell he really was or what he really spoke about or what he really did. All they know is a couple reggae songs and weed smoke. So I think that's the main reason that I haven't done that.
Well, maybe it's time to paint that painting.
Yeah, you could be right.
I don't know. I support it.
I support it too, and I might as well just do it.
Right? Right?
Yeah, why be afraid of what the outcome is going to be? Just do it, you know.
Yeah, I would just paint it if you're feeling it. That is, that's the main.
I've always felt it, and I'm really, like I said, I'm really surprised I haven't done it yet. It's bizarre, but maybe I should just jump off that cliff and do it.
Well, let me know if you do. I'd like to check it out. Is there a favorite place you have traveled or that you would like to travel to?
Touch on both of them. Places that I have traveled that I adore and love and would love to go back is Hawaii. I lived there for a little while. It's probably the most amazing place I've ever been as far as culture and beauty and just overall living like easily off the land. It's not easy to get a job there, and it's not easy to like pay for things there, but I've lived in a tent there on my buddy's backyard and ate mangoes. Very simple living. And I've also lived the other side of that. Like I worked at a Marriott beach club there, and I was making some money and whatever. But I was also an artist there, and actually got into a gallery on Front Street in Lahaina in Maui. Probably some of the fondest memories of my life to date. Being able to paint, have a studio in Maui, and literally collect checks from the gallery. And then if you're not doing that, you're surfing or lying on the beach or drinking Mai Tais or freaking snorkeling and looking at sea turtles and seals and dolphins and whales. Like, it's amazing. It's like another world.
Sounds like a good life to me.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Some people ask me why I ever left. You do get island fever, and you know, it's kind of the same thing as Santa Fe. Like, you know, we definitely have culture here and multicultural, and we've got different art scenes and abstract and Southwest and all this other stuff combined, but it's pretty saturated with like kind of cheesy Southwesty Western shit, right? So it's kind of how Hawaii is. Hawaii's got this just mega tourist aspect to it. Of course, all the locals are, you know, they make money off it, but of course they're pissed off about it too. They're just like, this is just so like drab. So
I've talked to people that think all Santa Fe art is howling coyotes and that type of thing, which is not the case at all.
No, definitely.
And nothing against howling coyotes. I love them. But
I like howling coyotes.
There's more. There's more. There's more than that. So how about places you want to go?
I really want to go to Mexico City. I know that sounds weird.
I heard it's amazing, so not really.
Yeah, really want to go there. And that's only as of recently. Like if you ask somebody, you know, hey, where do you want to go? Oh, I want to go to like Fiji or freaking, you know, just off the wall places. Like I get it. And yeah, of course I'd like to go all types of different places of the world, but I really want to go to Mexico City. Really inspired from Mexican revolutionary art. You know, I really want to go see all of that. I really want to go see all the murals in Mexico City and just really get into it and vibe it, suck it in.
Well, so here's another fun element to the question. If you could time travel, is there a specific era in Mexico City that you would pick? Would you go now or in the past or in the future?
I maybe would want to go in the past. Maybe want to be there when all of that was happening. I mean, it could be scary. I mean, there was a lot of crazy shit happening, but I think, especially for the muralists, I think a lot of things were happening for them, and they really were speaking out for the people and getting messages across that nobody could otherwise. And my wife just got me this, seriously, this book like this big on Diego Rivera and like all his murals all over Mexico. I mean, some of the shit he was painting was totally insane, borderline inappropriate, so intense and like graphic and literal and just crazy and just really, really intense. But it all had crazy meanings and purpose, and it's amazing. I would love to do stuff like that. To go back to your question, yeah, I think I'd probably go back in time and maybe like try to hang out with these guys, maybe get a paintbrush wet with them, you know? Hopefully. They'd probably tell me to fuck off, but
Well, hey, I mean, it would be, even if they did, like what an
yeah.
amazing experience would that be? One of my favorite questions to ask all my guests is about things that you might collect. Is there anything that you collect?
I would have to say I collect materials of all kinds. Basically a junk collector. So the minute I had my own piece of land, anything that was usable, or I thought was usable anyways, ended up in my pile. And my wife hates it, of course. I have a trailer and a truck, and nobody can stop me. I could literally drive by a dumpster and see pieces of wood sticking out of it, and I'm like, oh, I could totally use that. And goes in my truck, ends up in my pile, doesn't get used for years, years. And then all of a sudden, there's that one day where it's like, see, this goes perfect in our house. And it ends up like a beam in our living room or something. And
You know, I think that might actually relate to just being a creative person. I think in having a creative mind, you can just pre-imagine that it's going to be a beam in your ceiling or something like that, right?
well, yeah. Well, sometimes I don't know what it's going to be or where I'm even thinking, but I'm like, this is going to be useful someday, somehow, somewhere. The unfortunate thing is a lot of my friends know this. And so they're like, hey, dude, I just went by this place and there's like a whole bunch of dressers out there. So I don't know, maybe you could use them. It happens to me all the time. I have to like really stop myself a lot.
Right. Can get out of control if you're not.
Oh, so fast, so quick. You know, a lot of the stuff that I have collected has become something. So I'm at least sticking true to my word, especially for my wife when she's like, "What the hell are you gonna do with that?" I'm like, "I don't know, but something." We bought this giant TV and we're like, "What the hell are we gonna put that thing on?"
Mm.
And I was looking for weeks. I was looking at these TV stands that cost $1,000, and they're beautiful and everything. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, $1,000 for a TV stand, because we have a bit of a decor in our house. So I went out to the yard one day and I was like, holy shit, I have this kind of like an armoire type thing, armoire, whatever you call it, and it's got these two big doors and a couple drawers. And I mean, this thing is probably 100 years old, and it's been sitting in the rain and the snow and the sun, rats, snakes, black widows, everything. And I'm like, oh, there's our TV stand.
Obviously.
Got it out. I got it out, and I faux finished it with a little bit of turquoise paint, and I mean, the thing looks beautiful. It's stunning. Like people walk in our house and they're like, "Wow, where'd you get that piece of furniture?" Who got me into that was my father, because at the Santa Fe dump, you used to be able to trash collect, and you can't do that anymore. But me and my dad used to, and we
Mhm.
used to find all kinds of shit. One time we found a teacher's desk that was like in perfect condition. Ended up at our house was my art table, like beautiful wood desk with drawers still intact and everything. I mean, it was gorgeous. You couldn't buy shit like that today. That's my collection story.
And you have a few tattoos. We figured out a few of them are from a mutual friend of ours. Do you have
Yeah.
any favorite tattoos?
Kind of all have melded together in a way. So especially this arm is like just a giant sleeve now. So you can't really say like this one, this one, this one.
Sure.
It's kind of, this is a piece. But, you know, I really like this one. And you can see it. One, it's Hawaii, the palm tree and the mountains in the back. And it says ocean up top. And that's my daughter's name. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, Jeff did that black cat on me a long time ago.
Nice. So that's Jeffrey Pitt.
Yeah.
One of the earlier episodes.
And he did this crazy one too. That's some of my own artwork. That's kind of the weird creatures I used to do.
Oh, cool.
Back in the day, one-eyed flying cat.
But so you showed up at the shop with your drawing.
Yeah. And I traded him a piece of art that looked kind of just like this.
Very cool.
That was back in the old days, you know?
The old school Santa Fe days. And both of you have your own shops, which is super cool.
That's awesome. I'm so glad he got his own shop. It's really cool.
Another thing I'm curious about is movies, something you might watch on TV. Do you have any recent favorites or classic favorites or movies or directors that might have inspired your work over the years?
As far as that inspired me and my art, I mean, I watched a ton of art movies and just movies about our different artists, and all of them were inspiring, really. I mean, even the documentaries that I've watched along the way were inspiring as far as like pushing me to another level. Even the movies like that aren't documentaries, that are like a film based on an artist like Picasso or even the Basquiat film or Frida, that movie was amazing. So stuff like that, yeah, definitely always inspired me as far as art went. But other movies, like, I think the one that sticks out to me the most that just totally changed it all for me was A Clockwork Orange. Like, it just literally, like, I was just literally like, wait, what? You can do that? Like, you can do that with movies? Like, what are we watching? This is insane. That one is the one that just like jumps to my mind. Weird art house movies like that, just like bizarre stuff I used to watch back in the day, really changed my world. They just got away with everything and anything. And there's not a lot of that resonates these days anymore with me. And then just like as far as box office hits, Big Lebowski, I've watched that movie 7,000 times.
One of my personal favorites, I gotta say.
Yeah, definitely one of my personal favorites. But yeah, I painted the dude, and I painted the Jesus, and you know, that's definitely like one of my favorite cult classics. I really liked The Doors growing up with Val Kilmer. That movie was freaking awesome. I don't know why, but he just really did a good job playing Jim Morrison. I watched that 1,000 times too.
If anybody wants to see your art or hear your music right now, how do people do that? Are there digital formats you're relying on?
Our band has done a few virtual shows. We just did one down at Red Gorilla Studios, which was awesome. It's down in Albuquerque. It's this really cool studio where this guy's got a stage set up, lights and everything, and he's got a couple camera people that film it professionally. So you basically have a gig on stage live, just no audience, which is difficult, really. I mean, I know some bands can pull it off, but being the eclectic group we are, we really rely on crowd participation and just their feedback and their energy. Playing for an empty room with a couple cameramen isn't the same. So I'm sure we don't sound the same.
Right.
But we're
It
still
doesn't have that same energy of.
no, it doesn't have the same energy. But we're trying. We're still trying. So yeah, that can be found online. We have an Instagram, we've got a website, we've got Facebook pages, all that, and it's just boomrootscollective.com. Or and then as far as art goes, same thing. Like I've got a website, Instagram page, a Facebook page, and a lot of people have been finding me through that. And I've done a lot of commissions since the pandemic has started, and it's really saved my ass like big time because I'm not getting like a whole influx of tourists walking through my doors trying to buy art. So, it's basically word of mouth online and collectors or non-collect, just people that find me doing commissions. It's kind of how I survive right now, actually. So
And you also sell prints of your originals as well, right? Like if anybody wants something at a
yeah,
lower price point and you have candles and magnets and other, if somebody wants to really loves a piece but doesn't have the.
yeah, for sure. I try to make it available for everybody. So yeah, I mean, all the way down to greeting cards for $7. It's pretty easy to contact me and personally be involved in the transaction or possibly do something different. Or it's I feel like people like talking to the artist and like, wow, I can actually talk to you. That's great. I love talking to people, so it's fine. It's totally fine.
Right. So they can maybe send you a DM through Instagram or email or just set up an appointment to come visit the gallery. If.
Yeah, you can always come to the gallery. I'm not holding like serious hours right now. By appointment is fine. And if I'm here, I'm here. I'm here a lot painting. So it's my studio as well. You can come check me out while I'm painting. I I like visitors. I'm not scared if people walk in and I'm painting. I just keep working. If they have questions, I'm happy to answer, and I'm not rude.
Cool. Well, I'll come visit at some point in the near future. Thanks for being on the show. Do you have any other plugs or shout outs? Or do you feel like you've kind of said it?
I'll give a shout out to Chico Golaire. He's been helping me through all of this. He's helped me with my website and just making posters for me for shows, and just like he's basically my graphic designer guy. But like he's helped me big time, and he's doing a lot of cool things for other people in town. So get on him.
Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon and thanks for being on the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the people who are listening right now. Well, have a good night.